Right then troops, here we go with part 2 of the Cheap and Cheerful Goodmans action cam. I've already recorded some footage outdoors. I'll show you that footage in a moment, but from it I've learnt a few things. There are a few deficiencies in this camera, but still, for 20 quid we can't complain. The initial footage I've shot has a timestamp on it. Obviously that timestamp is wrong because I haven't set the camera time and date, and also I didn't think that a time and date would pop up, so I would have to remove it. I have now removed it. So that's the first limitation. The other limitations I'll bring up as we go through them, or as we come to them. But the first one is I'm having to speak quite loud and quite plain, because the microphone, when you're any distance away, and I'm approximately 3 or 4 feet away from the camera now, and the microphone is pointing away from me, so the sound quality is not too good. Now I've done some filming out today and I've learnt a lot from that. I'm going to do a little more filming tomorrow, so you'll see that film in this video as well. But I wanted to make sure that we were actually able to transfer what was on the camera onto the computer, and we were actually getting some footage. Remember, I only paid 20 quid, so far I'm still impressed. Right, on to the action then. So this is the first test of the action cam. The microphone's on the right hand side, so I'm speaking quite close to it at the moment. There's a lot of wind. The sun's out, but we're shaded here, and the sun is fairly low at this time of year, so it's not a bright day, but it's a good test of its daylight capabilities. So I'm just going to check the fondant which I put on the bees, put new fondant on if they need it. So that's why we put the fondant in a plastic container, so we can see that they've taken it. And they've almost finished that, but not enough to take it off. So I'm just going to close it up and leave them alone. Let's just see how close we can get in with this camera. The container's actually misting up because it would be very humid in there, and now I've opened the top and exposed it to the cold air, water's condensing inside, so it's misting up, so you probably can't see the bees now. That's about 2 inches away from the container and about 3 inches away from the nearest bees. So from what I could see in the back screen, that's not bad. So we're shaded in here, so I don't know what the sky will look like, possibly overexposed. It looks a bit overexposed in the back screen. And that's the sky. One thing I notice is some damage on the corner of the hive there, and that's caused by rats gnawing. So I'm going to have to get some traps down here. Okay, so we're on the way back home from the farm. Fairly dense woodland. Difficult lighting conditions, I would think. Be interesting to see how this turns out. There's background noise. There's a busy road not too far away. The other side of that distant field. She does her bit as well. Though I've got to be careful with plastic bottles. Not so much the bottle tops, but the little rings beneath the tops. Oh no, she's found water. I knew this pond was here as well. And it stinks. If I have to come in there and rescue you, you're going to be in serious trouble. Now get out of it. Come out of there. The sun is not yet above the horizon, so it's very low light conditions. So we're currently testing in low light conditions. I think you can see it being a little bit jerky when it has to change the exposure. I think when you're looking at the same brightness all the time it's not too bad, but when the brightness changes it has difficulty with that. You can also see the spherical aberration as it makes straight edges look round because of the wide angle lens. Right, it just remains now to do the dip test, and for that I'm going to put the camera in the housing. It makes a nice suction noise when you open it. I hope that's it. There's a film I've got to take off the front, protective film. There's one on the back as well, but I don't need to take that one off. So that's that taken off. Right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hopefully attach it to this pole this pole will slide in there. Right, so here goes 20 quid then. We've got it switched on, putting it on record. There, we're on record. I brought a torch with me because it's not very light out and it'll be dark down there. But anyway, here we go. Hey, that'll go. Right then, I'll try and keep this fairly short. In conclusion, as to whether my £20 was well spent or not. I think one of the biggest problems when you buy a cheap action cam is your expectations are too high. Well, mine weren't too high, although I have to say this does have some fairly big issues. One of them is the sound quality. I can think of ways of getting round that, but that's not going to work in the waterproof housing. In the waterproof housing you get virtually no usable sound, and I think you've just got to accept that. You could use separate sound and then sync them together later, and that might be a good idea in all circumstances, because one of the worst things I found about this is that the sound isn't synced with the video. You'll see that when I was chopping that piece of wood. Now, you could sort that out in editing, but that's a right faff that you've got to go through, and I'm not sure whether you can change it on the camera or not. I suspect probably not, although I'm not expert at what you can and can't do with this. The image quality, I would say, is not 1080p. It's nowhere near the quality of my mobile phone or my DSLR camera. So that's got to be questionable as to whether it is 1080p. I'm sure when I dig into it a bit more, the computer will tell me that. I had no problem taking images and video off this onto the computer. It just comes up as an external drive and you just drag them off. But one other issue I did have is the way it names files. It starts at some letters and then 0001 and just goes through, but it starts again at 0001 every time you pulled all the video off and start again. so you've got to start renaming things. There's probably a work around that that's a lot easier than what I've been doing, but that was another issue. You've got a wide angle lens on there. It's not going to be of massive quality, and you get spherical aberration where straight lines look curved. I think for a wide angle lens and for what this costs and what it is, you've got to live with that. You probably get chromatic aberration to some degree as well, where it doesn't bring all the different light colours to the same focus, but I haven't noticed that. I haven't been critical enough to notice that. It is fairly grainy, especially in poor light, and when it changes the exposures, that's very noticeable. As you move from a dark area to a light area, or a light area to a dark area, you can notice the exposure levels jumping to suit the background. Fast images, I think the frame rate is probably a little bit low. Again, the computer will probably tell me that when I've looked into it a bit more. I was pleased to see that you could change the battery out, although a sticker being stuck across the battery bay tells me they don't expect you to change the battery out. I've yet to find out whether I can get replacement batteries for it, but the battery lasted easily between half an hour to 1 hour depending on how you're using it, because the back screen will consume quite a bit of power, and you can get that to switch off at, it'll still stay recording and you can be recording an image, but the back screen will switch off, and you can get it to do that after 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes or whatever. The instructions, we tend to only use the instructions as read the instructions as a last resort. It is fairly easy to figure out. There's one button on the top, one on the front, and 2 on the side, so there's not a lot of messing about you need to do. What else? Those are the negative points. The absolutely plus point is the underwater housing and how easy it is to use in the housing with the buttons on it. You have got to be fairly firm with the buttons, but I had no problems with them. And I was going to put some Vaseline or something on the ceiling here before I used it for the first time, but I didn't, and I had no problems with it at all. Stayed waterproof. So what you're going to use this for is where you want a bit of footage, but you don't want to risk damaging your far more expensive mobile phone or your DSLR camera or whatever you're using that cost a lot more than 20 quid. So in conclusion then, was it worth £20? To me, definitely it was worth £20. So I'm going to leave it there. I won't be too long before I get back to you with a more outdoory video. I am aware that there is one video I'm yet to do, which is the production of the colloidal silver. We'll get to that when we get to it, and I won't mention it again until I've actually done it. I have got all the means to do it now, so what's stopping me? It's just time, stuff I have to do. So I'll leave it there, and I wish you all the best, and I'll catch you on the next one.